I'm gonna be honest, people. Last night was not the most interesting convention night. Actually, I'm gonna be super honest. It was extremely boring. And that's only because the other nights have been so rock and roll. I mean, on night 1, Kimberly Guilfoyle attempted to summon the Kraken. On night 2, Donald Trump had a ceremony with immigrants that wasn't a marriage. But last night, the most exciting thing to happen was a speech by Mike Pence, a man so boring that during his midlife crisis, he bought a minivan. Hey ladies, you want to come on in? I'm going to Costco. And part of what made Pence's speech interesting was how he's able to hide so much bullshit underneath the veneer of a respectable, small-town pastor. In fact, he actually made me appreciate Trump because Trump says bullshit in a bullshit way. That's always easy to spot. Like this.
You mentioned the Bible. You've been talking about how it's your favorite book. And you said, I think last night in Iowa, some people are surprised that you say that. I'm wondering what one or two of your most favorite Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal. So I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into...
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite?
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like?
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal.
See? Obvious bullshit. We all know that man has never read the Bible. Now, granted, he's never read any book, but he specifically never read the Bible, which is your favorite. But with Mike Pence, if you're not paying attention, he comes across as a reasonable guy. You know, it's the same way I didn't trust anything that the Tiger King said, but when Doc Antle spoke, he almost made me believe that he wasn't running a wild animal sex cult. It just seemed like everyone was just doing their thing. And last night was Mike Pence at his finest. Cool, calm, and full of BS. Starting with the way he talked about the civil unrest happening in America's cities.
Last week, Joe Biden didn't say one word about the violence and chaos engulfing cities across this country. President Trump and I know that the men and women that put on the uniform of law enforcement are the best of us. Every day, when they walk out that door, they consider our lives more important than their own. People like Dave Patrick Underwood, an officer in the Department of Homeland Security's Federal Protective Service, who was shot and killed during the riots in Oakland, California. Dave's heroism is emblematic of the heroes that serve in blue every day.
First off, Pence says that an officer was killed during the riots in Oakland, which gives you the impression that the officer was killed by rioters, right? The truth is, the person charged with killing Officer Underwood is a right-wing terrorist. You know, it's sort of like saying that Bruce Lee died during the Vietnam War. Yeah, technically that's correct because he died in 1973, but it's not while he was fighting the Viet Cong. You gotta tell the truth, people. Bruce Lee was killed by the Illuminati. When Pence says that Joe Biden didn't say one word about the violence during the convention, he's giving you the impression that Biden supports the riots, when in fact, Biden condemned them a few months ago when they started, and he continued condemning them again yesterday when they kicked off in Kenosha. And that's what makes Mike Pence so slick. He doesn't lie. He doesn't lie. He just implies. But that's fine, I guess. You know, there's no commandment that says, "Thou shalt not suggest false witness against thy neighbor." So, according to Mike Pence, America under President Trump is falling into anarchy. But you'll never guess whose fault it actually is.
Joe Biden says that America is systemically racist and that law enforcement in America has, and I quote, an implicit bias against minorities. Joe Biden would double down on the very policies that are leading to violence in America's cities. The hard truth is, you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America.
That's right. You see all the bad stuff that's happening in Trump's America? Well, that's actually Joe Biden's America. So wait, when is it Trump's America? When things are going well. And as for the idea that you won't be safe when Joe Biden is president, People are not safe now. Forget the riots. Coronavirus is waiting to punch me in the lungs as soon as I leave the house. You won't be safe in the future. Bitch, I can't even go to a Denny's right now. So Mike Pence talking about riots and protests wasn't exactly on the up and up. But it was nothing compared to his bullshit about Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic, which, to hear him tell it, was more perfect than Trump's call with Ukraine.
Before the first case of the coronavirus spread within the United States, the president took unprecedented action and suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, that action saved untold American lives. And I can tell you firsthand, it bought us invaluable time to launch the greatest national mobilization since World War II. President Trump marshaled the full resources of our federal government from the outset. He directed us to forge a seamless partnership with governors across America in both political parties. Today, we're conducting more than 800,000 tests a day, and we have coordinated the delivery of billions of pieces of personal protective equipment for our amazing doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually kind of impressed by how much cow excrement Pence managed to pack in here. Because yes, America is doing 800,000 tests a day now. What Pence doesn't mention is the many months where America did basically no testing, and that Trump himself wants there to be less testing. Pence brags about coordinating the delivery of PPE. What he doesn't mention is that America was so disorganized on PPE that nurses were wrapping themselves up in garbage bags, running around looking like some kind of broke-ass Missy Elliott's. I mean, it's great that you bought invaluable time to launch a national mobilization, but what would have been even better was if you actually used that invaluable time to actually do the national mobilization. Oh, and as for the seamless partnership with America's governors, I assume Pence is referring to when Trump told Democratic governors that they would only get help if they were nice to him. I mean, I guess that's a seamless partnership. The same way when a guy walks into the bank and tells someone to put the money in the bag, they put the money in the bag. Hashtag teamwork. Now, to be fair, Mike Pence did admit that America hasn't completely solved coronavirus. But then he got mad that Joe Biden said finishing the job would take actual work.
Now, last week, Joe Biden said that no miracle is coming. Well, what Joe doesn't seem to understand is that America is a nation of miracles. And I'm proud to report that we're on track to have the world's first safe, effective coronavirus vaccine by the end of this year.
Wow, what a miracle. We might be getting the vaccine at some point, and only 200,000 people had to die first. Take that, Joe Biden. Like, I don't think it still qualifies as a miracle if it happens long after we needed the miracle. God parting the Red Sea wouldn't have been quite as miraculous if it happened 8 months after the Egyptians stabbed all the Israelites to death. So, that was Mike Pence's speech. And I guess we finally found out why Pence always has that permanent squint. Yeah, his own face is going, are we really saying this bullshit? But at least Pence managed to finish his address by turning all that BS into one amazing, new, terrible campaign slogan.
We will re-elect our president and principled Republican leaders across the land. And with President Donald Trump in the White House for 4 more years, and with God's help, we will make America great again. Again.
Damn. I didn't think they could come up with something worse than make America great again, but they did it. Because MAGA was an ambiguous call to a bygone era that never really existed. This new slogan just sounds like someone got hit in the head with a bag of hammers. Because what's implied with make America great again, again, is that at some point during your presidency, you f***ed up. It almost makes me think that this whole slogan was a mistake. Mr. President, we need to think of a brand new slogan. How about make America great again? Again? My God, Mike, you're a genius. Honestly, I wouldn't trust anyone who uses the phrase again. Like if my plumber said he needed to fix my toilet again, I would find a new plumber and a new toilet. Probably a Japanese one. I mean a Japanese toilet, not a Japanese plumber. Not that I wouldn't hire a Japanese plumber. I don't care what race my plumber is. It can be any race. I'm just saying the toilet. I didn't want you to think that, you know what? Let me start that joke again.